You are ruining my liberty.
No,
I don't want
I'm
to
allowed
show
to
my
film
face.
here.
What you're seeing here is a Chinese international student vandalizing and destroying a Lin Wall at the University of Queensland in Australia. I'm going to play you a little clip here and we're going to talk about it. So let's get into it.
Your camera has been on.
Yeah, and I've just
You
been
are ruining
filming.
my liberty.
No,
I don't want
I'm
to
allowed
show
to
my
film
face. I don't want to show my face. I just want to show that I'm not show my freedom.
Yeah, I understand that, and I will blur out your face, right? But can you tell me a bit about why you think it's right to rip these down?
I don't think I'm right, but you think you are right to tell these lies to the students, especially those teenagers?
I don't think that they all are lies. I mean, I
You
don't know that any of them are lies.
And
Can
I
you
think
point to a
have
specific
the-
one that is?
And I think you have the time to figure out what's lies to show to
What about
And
this
I-
one here? The picture of the tanks.
Tanks?
Are you aware of what happened then?
Do you know Australia had
The massacre in Tiananmen Square? Do you know much about that?
No, I don't know that about that because I haven't been born. It happened
Yeah.
just 14 to 15 years ago, right?
Yeah, I get that. But see, in some other countries,
why do
and
you
in
concern
Australia
about
certainly.
things happened decades ago? I'm just
Yeah,
thinking
I
about
get
now.
that.
I'm just thinking about the future, the students, the teenagers. What will they be influenced by this war?
I think the intent is to make them think twice about what's
About what?
happening
About what?
in the Xinjiang province in East Turkestan. There
I
are
will show you
Uyghur
what
Muslims.
Xinjiang is launching now, and I will show you what China is looking like. I just want to say, I think I appreciate your attitude about thinking twice, but I think I have the right to tell you the truth. You always told us that you are telling the truth, and I thought that, and I think that you are telling lies.
I think that the truth is a difficult thing sometimes, so certainly I'd be happy to hear your perspective. But as far as I'm aware, there are Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps in that province
Concentration camps.
on account of nothing else.
Do you
other
have
than their
jails? Do you
religion.
have jails in Australia? Do you have jails in Australia?
Certainly we do.
Okay, let's break that down a bit. This is actually quite a common occurrence. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Lin Walls, but this is something that sprung up pretty much with the whole Hong Kong, democracy movement, the umbrella movement. And this is a common occurrence. What happens is people put up a Lin Wall, which is a bunch of post-it notes, a bunch of posters talking about the struggles for democracy in Hong Kong. It's usually about the Hong Kong struggle. And they'll put up things like the CCP, end the CCP, CCP rule of Hong Kong, that kind of thing, and freedom of democracy. And these Lin Walls are the arch enemy of Chinese ultranationalists, the arch enemy of Chinese international students who are working to censor on behalf of the CCP. You ever want to draw them out? Start a Lin Wall. Because you know what? Freedom of speech is enshrined in the constitution of many countries. And what we often see, like I'll show you another quick clip in the background here. I'll keep myself in. We can see here's a mainland student destroying a Lin Wall in the University of Hong Kong and throwing over the goddess of freedom and stuff. It's very common. It's very common to see this happening in Canada and happening in Australia and anywhere where you've got a, I don't know, they'll have a free or Hong Kong democracy gathering or protest or anything. You will get mainland international students coming and destroying these exhibitions, just tearing them down. And as you can see, just vandalizing them. And it's heartbreaking. And it's actually kind of easy to understand why it happens, because in mainland China, you may not talk about these things. You may not criticize the government. You may not ever say a bad thing about the government. You're not allowed to talk about Tiananmen Square. You're not allowed to talk about the sensitive issues of Xinjiang and what have you. So when they see other people talking about these things, to them, it's like, this is forbidden. You may not talk about this. You have no right to talk about this. We don't have a right to talk about this. You don't have a right to talk about this. And they go crazy. And they attack people. And they break things and destroy things and vandalize things. And you can see the mentality. Somebody, an international student, goes to Australia. And then, kind of like the 50 Cent Army, the Zhigang Wu Mao, the volunteer 50 Cent Army, become a real-life version of that. And instead of trying to censor things on the internet, they try to censor things in real life by tearing down pictures and posters and breaking down statues and what have you. Because in their minds, it's impossible for anyone to ever criticize the Chinese government. It's not allowed, right? Doesn't matter where you are, in what country, but you can't do it because their entire upbringing, they've been brought up to believe that you're not allowed to do that kind of thing. However, if you look at the things she was saying, first of all, she was laughing about the idea of Uyghur concentration camps, which is, of course, very insensitive to Uyghur people. She was tearing down people's property. You're not allowed to do that, you know. That's called vandalism. It's against the law in most places. And even more telling is when, by the way, the person who's talking, who filmed it, is our good friend Drew Pavlu in Australia. By the way, vote for him if you're Australian. When he spoke about Tiananmen Square, what did she say? Oh, that happened so long ago, what, 40, 50 years ago? Imagine we all took that attitude. Imagine somebody brings up the, I don't know, the massacre of the Native Americans in Canada or something, and you're like, you know, the Inuit or whatever, and you say, oh, that happened so long ago, who cares about that? You're not allowed to talk about it. You're not allowed to bring that up. Or apartheid. Ah, that happened so long ago. You're not allowed to talk about that. You know, shut up. I'm not going to allow you to put up posters about that, you know, or not allowed to let you discuss that type of thing. You see, it's ridiculous, this attitude that happens. I'm incredibly disappointed at how these incidents have been handled in the past. No one ever seems to be taken to task. Usually surrounding universities, look what happened to Drew Pavlu. He was attacked in his group of little, activists, you could call them, were just there doing a protest against Beijing. And guess what? They got attacked physically. And this happens. These ultra-nationalist so-called international students are in fact, and not all of them, of course, but the ultra-nationalist ones are really just enforcers for Chinese censorship. They are agents of the Chinese government. The actual international students who are there to learn and study and to respect the host country, they're great. They're wonderful. Probably some of the best people you'll meet, some of the best students, but they're never very outspoken about politics simply because they know the trouble it can get them into. But these Chinese Students and Scholars Associations, Confucius Institutes, Chinese Culture Association, Chinese this and that all get involved on campus, and all those crazy ultra-nationalists that go there and tear down the Lin Walls and go and boycott and try to stop speeches by the Dalai Lama or by anyone who wants to put on a Taiwan food stall or whatever. Those guys and those girls are really just agents of the Chinese Communist Party. And I hate the fact that they don't get taken to task. And I understand it because a lot of these universities rely on international students as a big revenue stream. So they don't want to piss the Chinese international student bodies off too much because they don't want to lose that revenue. But at the same time, they're more than happy to just destroy all semblance of freedom of speech and expression on campus when it comes to Chinese issues, or China issues, I should say, you know, like the CCP issues. But everything else is fair game. You can have a Black Lives Matter wall. You can have any kind of wall you want. You can have a hate Biden wall, a hate Trump wall, or a hate this wall, or Canadians are terrible because of XYZ wall, or whatever you want. But when it comes to China, a China thing, nope, not allowed. So the Lin Wall at the University of Queensland was rebuilt, and almost immediately, Chinese international students came and tore it down again. Here you can see the one girl filming the other one tearing down posters. They're having a great laugh at their vandalism. I wrote and I shared this whole thing because Drew Pavlu over there, he actually tweeted out this video that he took, of course, of this person ripping down the Lin Wall. So I said, it's the truth that hurts Chinese feelings the most. That's what happens if you grow up being fed lies by the CCP. And it is true. You know, Chinese people are incredibly resilient. I've seen that myself. They have a almost uncanny ability to 吃苦, as they say, which means to eat bitter, in other words, to suffer. And throughout Chinese history, the people of China have had to endure some of the worst dictators and emperors and, you name it, and some of the worst conditions, just having to survive. If you know about Chinese history, you'll know that this is all true, that the Chinese people are incredibly resilient. And all the Chinese friends that I've made throughout the years are incredibly resilient. But one thing that seems to always trigger a knee-jerk response is when there's any kind of criticism of the CCP, but I'm not talking about unfounded criticism. I'm not talking about somebody just saying like, oh, CCP is dumb, they suck. It's like when people just want to talk about the Tiananmen Square massacre, for instance, or the occupation of Tibet, and even just talk about it, not even say it's wrong, just start to talk about these issues, or talk about the Uyghur situation, or the Hong Kong democracy protests, or anything that's sensitive. You get a knee-jerk reaction, especially because of the nationalist education. The Chinese government has put so much time, effort, and resource into making sure that what they have done in the past is correct, even when it's not correct, that you get this knee-jerk nationalist response. And so the truth surrounding these particular events hurts the feelings of the Chinese people the most. Because, you know what? The truth hurts. And the truth cuts like a knife. We all know that. We all know that. So, I put this out, and here's the important part, is the response that I got from a specific person, who seems reasonable, by the way. And I was taking them as a reasonable person in the beginning. But they say, sometimes it feels like a lot of generalizations about Asians living abroad stem from the high amount of negative coverage about China and its government. It's sad that people still can't separate the two. It's even sadder when Asians feel they need to defend China. See what they're doing here? It's very clever. It's a little trick. What does this post, by the way, about a Lin Wall talking about Tiananmen Square and Hong Kong, by the way, which also, Hong Kongers are Asians, by the way, and Hong Kong democracy and freedom is being torn down by a mainland Chinese student, right? How does this suddenly become Asians, right? How and what Asians are defending China as well? That's another thing that's ridiculous. Like when Asians feel they need to defend China. No Asian is defending China. There's not a Japanese person up there going like, Tiananmen Square didn't happen. You can't show this. You can't talk about Hong Kong democracy. There's not a Filipino up there doing that. There's not a Hong Konger or a Taiwanese person who are ethnically Chinese up there doing that, right? What Asians is this person talking about? There are no Asians defending this. That is not an random Asian person. That is a mainland Chinese student tearing this down. So they're trying to muddy the waters. So I simply replied by saying, it's not Asians, it's mainland Chinese freaking out since they're not used to freedom of expression. They can't accept that anyone meant to say that anyone can criticize the CCP since it's not allowed in China. So they resort to petty vandalism and property destruction. Okay? To which he replies, I get that's the video, but there's a lot Asian discrimination going on all over the place. Just making a general statement. Okay? See, again, sounding fairly reasonable, but at the same time, it's not reasonable if you think about the fact that they've changed the narrative of the initial post, which is the end goal. I said, sure, but when it comes to getting angry, destructive, and violent, when people put up Lin Walls regarding democracy and denouncing the CCP's brutal actions, it's not Asians, it's only mainland Chinese nationalists. And do you see, I make the distinction between mainland Chinese people and mainland Chinese nationalists, because there are plenty of reasonable mainland Chinese people who would not go tear down that wall, you know? To the reply. Realistically, at this point, any nationalist can be destructive, not limited to China. I understand that this is the main concern for you. With that said, a lot of people abroad see nationalist Chinese and other Asians as the same thing. The stigma covers all Asians. All right? See where this is going? So I reply, no, these are issues directly related to China and the CCP only, and don't concern other Asians. Please show me an example of anyone other than a mainland Chinese nationalist tearing down a pro-democracy Hong Kong Lin Wall. Muddying of the water is what you are doing. To which they said, all right, that's that then, muddy waters. To which I replied, get there. It's what the CCP wants, to use people like you to deflect criticism away from the CCP issues by trying to make it a race thing. Pathetic that people fall for it. So this person then went on to, I'll finish this and then I'll tell you what happened after. He says, all right, because you're ranting about whatever getting your views and likes is helping whom, that's all right. It's you. Keep that cash flow rolling in, no matter where in. Is it California that you're in? ? So, true colors exposed. This is a Wu Mao. First of all, coming into the whole thing, I'm just trying to make views. I'm just trying to make money out of smearing China or saying bad things about China. And then, I don't know if this is an attempt to dox my location. Am I in California? Well, sorry, no. Pennsylvania is the correct answer to that. Although I am sometimes in California when I fly down there, or we go back and forth occasionally, so who knows. So, of course, my last comment there is proof you're just a Wu Mao. I'll use this thread in our podcast to show your methods of deflection, race baiting, and hatred. To which I got some nasty, insulting replies, and then the person deleted all of their tweets when they realized that I was going to show them. Too bad, I already recorded it, sorry. Too late. You can't just do that kind of shit and then delete your tweets. Sorry, mate. But do you see what this is all about? A very succinct topic. A Lin Wall being torn down by a mainland Chinese nationalist. And all of a sudden, you get this deflection on behalf of the Chinese government. Whether this person is a Chinese Wu Mao or a volunteer Wu Mao or a tanky or some kind of foreigner who's been taken in by the propaganda, either way, it all works very well because look what it devolved into. Race baiting. Oh, I can't criticize this person for tearing down this Lin Wall because it reflects badly on all Asians and all Asians are under attack and blah, blah, blah. You're just racist, basically, is the end of this conversation that they're going for. And you see how effective this could be. If they tried this on just a casual person commenting on this, the average person might back off because they are afraid of the racist label or being afraid of the woke mob coming after them. Well, guess what? Piss off. I don't give a shit. I know Asian people, and I know when I'm talking about mainland Chinese nationalists destroying other Asian people's Lin Walls, by the way, because it was put up by Hong Kong students. It's not put up by white people or black people. It's put up by other Asians. I know the difference between mainland Chinese people and Koreans and Japanese and Taiwanese and Hong Kongese and Singaporeans and Indians and you name it. Give me an Asian nationality and I'll be able to tell you a lot about their history, their culture, and I can tell you the differences between them and mainland Chinese people. And the difference is that mainland Chinese people have glass hearts, the nationalists, not all of them, but it's due to their education. They have glass hearts which shatter whenever the truth is spoken, and they resort to violence, and they tear down these walls, these Lin Walls, and they attack any criticism of the CCP. That is the difference. So, Wu Mao, thank you for showing the rest of the world how the CCP operates and how it silences any kind of discussion around these issues by throwing out the race card. We talked about it last week when Badiu Cao, the Chinese artist, had his posters removed because of a similar thing where the dean of the university was contacted and told that the posters were racist. And immediately he started an investigation and got the posters taken down because he was so afraid of the whole racist thing. And the sooner we realize that being anti-CCP is being anti-Asian hate, the better it's going to be, because it's the CCP that hate Asians the most. The Chinese Communist Party is actually responsible for more Asian deaths than anyone else. Great leap forward, great leap backwards, cultural devolution, tens of millions of people starved to death. We've had them attacking Vietnam. We've had all sorts of nonsense going on in the past. When it comes to being Asian, Taiwanese constantly under threat by the CCP, threat of a military attack. When it comes to Hong Kong, their entire democracy has been destroyed and the promises of having autonomy for 50 years shattered by the Communist Party of China. You know who hates Asians? The CCP, that's who. And yet they've managed to turn these well-meaning, useful idiots, or their paid trolls or whatever it is into this machine that's managed to twist the narrative on its head and say that any criticism of the Communist Party of China is racist because suddenly Asians. Bullshit. Don't buy it. Don't fall for the stupid race baiting. And remember, the CCP is a government, not a race. China is a country, not a race. I really appreciate you all sitting down and having this conversation with me. I also wanted to let you know that there's now daily content when it comes to China on a new channel I've started with Lau86 called China Fact Chasers, where proper topics that we discuss on our podcasts are put out there daily. So please go over and subscribe. It currently has 0 subscribers. Let's see how many we can get. Anyway, guys, until the next video, thank you all for watching. And as always, stay awesome.